This conference will now be recorded.
Hello?
Can folks on the line hear me?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Can everyone on the line hear my voice?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. So the question was about 990 and a grant for $50,000. Not to put all your business out there, but also
I hear the presenter. I can't.
so typically to be eligible, you would need to have a fiscal agent or have a partner that has that 501c3 status. Who has that status? Oh, I'm sorry, I heard no. So you do have the if you have your 501c3, but you're saying you don't have your audited financial, but you have a 990. So I would email that question in because again, typically anybody asking for over 50,000, we need an audit financial, and that's an audit requirement for us. Yes, sir. And then I'll go back and I skipped you, and I'm sorry.
Can you apply for and be a fiscal agent for someone else?
That's interesting. I don't know. Well, no, that's not true. The answer is yes. We have a similar situation in our current funding. It would just have to be very distinctive than what your role is, so it doesn't look like you're double dipping. So what I would say is it's not the fiscal agent for the project that you also applied for. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let her control the question. So we're gonna go to this young lady, then back up to this young lady. Yeah. No, I just want to know everybody talking about the single social security. How do you start comprehensive program?
Hello. You dropped again. Come on.
It's is there anyone from Family League on the line? Hello, is there anyone from Family League on the line?
Hear you.
Huh?
Getting lots of feedback.
I think you need to disconnect from the
Jen, I'm gonna have these guys get all the toiletries out of here.
Okay, we're just on a conference call.
Hello, we can't hear anybody.
Yeah. There's toys on the bottom, but all the rest of them are toiletries.
About you do not have to this program be a loan
Okay.
I'll be back. I got.
or whatever number of hours they operate.
You want me to reach out to,
Slow buyers. They think falling out.
Everyone on the call who can currently hear my voice, if you can mute your own line, because we're getting a lot of feedback here. We can hear people moving around and people talking. that we can make sure everyone here in the room can hear. We're going to try to more centrally locate this phone, and we'll make sure we repeat the questions, but also know you can hear on the recording. But if you could just mute your lines until we acknowledge people on the phone.
Yes, that one, all the toiletries. This one I don't think so.
That was, would average daily attendance be required for our school-based programs, require in terms of pay?
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep it with the order that we designated. No, I didn't. I came back. Then we'll go on. Yep. My question was about, was someone else asked about programs or having a physical agent also apply?
I'm sorry, the person presenting, please come closer to the mic. We cannot hear you.
The question is being asked about physical agency and application. If you don't hear the question, I'm going to ask, I'm going to try to repeat all of them, but if you feel like you've missed a question that's being asked in the room, I'm going to ask that you revisit the presentation online. Yes, we have multiple programs running out of our facility. And so my first question was, can the facility apply separately as the facility? Our phone bill, all that stuff is we can retain the facility and then allow those programs to apply individually that they're working out of our building. We are located in Park Heights. So we have programs that operate in the buildings that are I would encourage, and I'm going to let Taiwan, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, go ahead and correct me in front of all these people, it'll be fine. I'm going to encourage a collaborative proposal and that it'll be reflected in your budget. That's mine, but she's the one who is all the end up asking for a lot because, of course, these programs, you know what I mean? And so it ended up being asked over $150,000 yearly, you know what I mean? Each program needs their own, you know what I mean? So how does that keep us competitive then if we know that it's going to cost $50,000 for this and then $30,000 for each program? You know what I mean? So for those on the phone, the question is if you have multiple programs, they're all operating out of the same facility, how should you go about submitting your proposal so you can make sure, A, the facility and the bills are covered versus program expenses? And I would, and again, maybe we'll take this offline because it seems very specific, but most places that share a building also share the rental expenses. So then that should just be an administrative line item in your individual budget. So for instance, if Family League is sharing this building with 2 other people, our third portion of the rent we put in our budget. Right. And so then they should put their third to cover it. Right. So, but you're saying the issue is within the 501c3 because the building is what it holds. So no. Another one. And we've worked it out before. Like we've been able to do it before, but now the structure kind of changes. The organizations are growing. Like we're getting more coming to different organizations, and so they're changing. That's like happening. I would think email that online because I still think there's a way because the building shouldn't have to apply separate. Like we work with people like Strong City's a fiscal agent for multiple programs that we run. So that's not a. I think the difference is if Family League wanted to be the fiscal agent for a Charles project, then we also apply for the Charles Village project. That's a little bit of a conflict of things. But again, I would say email us to make sure we're clear. But that's it's having a fiscal agent shared among people is not an issue. We'll come up here to red shirt, and then we have a sea of questions in the red. I'm sorry. It's my way of remembering. I know. So this may have already been addressed, but. You have to be a 501c3 to apply for the funds. a lot of acronyms and stuff. Sure. Is there anyone who's like good on that? I don't want to like. I'm gonna ask you to document your question. Yes, and we're all good at it. And just send them to the link. Yep, and then, got it. We work together, the program team and the contract team work together to respond. All right, there's a few questions in the back. The, young lady in the black shirt, then I'll go to the, is it chartreuse? Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it. Available for what, so how much money, even though I know that, so that, and then also related, I think, why is it that collaborative proposals have to have one partner in Park Heights, when the collaborative proposal is $1,000, but it's used nonprofit work together? So let me speak to this. So we have combined this, so you all didn't have to come out multiple times. There's a pot of money that is only available for programs and or serving Park Heights. Right. If you want to do that and you do not currently have a presence in Park Heights, you need to partner with someone who does. That is for $440,000. That whole pot of money is what that is for Park Heights. Okay. Otherwise, the balance of this funding is available citywide in the Baltimore City. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. The field question, chartreuse. So, my question was, so if we had a budget, does it allow for older youth to get stipends that be a part of the budget? So the question is, if you are putting in your budget stipends for youth, is that allowable? The answer is yes. Here's my cost. It's stipend. It comes with a whole required documentation, and you have to be able to provide that. I don't reimburse for that cost. That was the cost that was for home.
We cannot hear you very well.
Well, they got a mute.
That's what I'm saying.
Who is it?
I would probably tell that question again so you can get clear.
Could all callers put your calls on mute?
You have to use the that you all no ma'am. Like you offer a snack, some kind of not something. The young lady in the pink shirt and over to the woman behind her and then up front. Yeah. So all right, this is for community-based programs. So if you're operating within the school, that is not appropriate proposal for this site. What about summer? Is it cover summer program? That's it. Right. Yes. So this is a good question that was asked ahead of time. So because the funding is being released in January, we got clearance from the city for this funds to be expended through until September 30th. That will cover your summer months. You will need to reflect that in your budget, and in some of your narrative of how you're going to ramp up for summer program offerings. Many of you in this room may plan to also apply to the Summer Funding Collaborative. Family League is a member of the Summer Funding Collaborative, and we will be reporting who receives funds for this opportunity. That does not negate your ability to apply. You need to make it clear, though, when you're applying for Summer Funding Collaborative, that this is an expansion, so that we're supplementing, not supplanting. We already funded you through this award. We're not going to give you more money for the same programming that you described, at least you won't receive it from the family leave. We encourage you to apply for enough for the summer month. Is that clear? Please, up front, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to everybody. It's not required for this grant opportunity. At this time, we're only using ADA for school-based programming. It's just to apply
I hear anything. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. Sorry.
We're gonna talk some more. What time you gonna be here for a bit?
So the question Denise has is,
Have a conference call at 3.
that two different proposals, but a collaborative proposal covering both of those. I think you need to do what makes most sense for your programming as far as getting the funding covered. If it makes more sense to submit them separately, they will be rated independently.
That one too, I mean, how you gonna?
Okay. Yeah, we just gotta think through that PAL portion of.
I'm talking about.
Over here, and I'll come to you and work my way back up to the front. Oh, I'm sorry. You're like, lady, this quick. Okay, you're already getting, money.
I think look, from what I heard from the meeting, it was for Ben Center. It wasn't to bring him to UMB.
Be able to apply to cover the other 40.
And what is CSF?
All right, I'm distracted by the phone. Can you speak a little bit louder? Would this grant cover supplemental funding? If you're already getting.
To his credit, he really did a good job moving.
Already covers like 60.
Who's talking? What's the top of that?
Space program. You would need to make that clear how we're supplementing, not supplanting the previous one. Okay. Coming over here and then working my way up, all the way in the back. So, I went to the Survey Monkey a couple of days ago, and I was not able to say. So, has that been checked? And then also, is there a Word document that has all of the questions? Just in case you want to just create it today. Excuse me, I'm going to repeat the question for those on the phone because we're still having muting challenges. So the question in the back was that a person went to the Survey Monkey and it was not working to save it. So she was unable to save it and then wanted to know if that was checked and corrected. And then the second question was Word document with all the questions. So for first answer, we did test it a couple of times. Everyone here put in a fake application and it worked for us to save it as well as submit it. So what I would say is try it again today. If it doesn't, send us an email immediately, or you can email me. And then for the second question, we will make sure as a part of this conference, not only does the PowerPoint get posted up there, but we'll also post the questions in a Word document or a PDF document for it to be put up there. And then we'll also put any additional questions that come via email responses up there. Yes, the question. So we'll make sure a copy of a blank version of the application is put on there, as well as this PowerPoint, as well as any questions that we receive via email after this meeting is over. To come up to the young lady in the black, move over, blue, all the way over. I'm zigzagging up to the front. Okay. Just a quick question. First community based or understand that we're working out of the school. Is that okay? So not so quick after all. I would say let's put a pin in that one and email it. You're probably going to hear that a lot from me because I don't want to one that we had usually. Yeah, it's usually cut and dry.
I have, I guess, a couple questions. So one, I want to understand the distinction between the single and the comprehensive. Are you saying both are eligible for the same amount of funding, but if you call yourself a comprehensive program, then you have to serve students for 12 hours per week? Correct. Okay. I know in the past there was a much smaller amount.
Based on how you described it, yes, but I'm going to also ask that you document it and submit it so that everyone online and so I can answer very clearly. But right now, yes, as you described it.
And then my second question is, I imagine, I know our program, I imagine a lot of people are offering much more hours of programming over the summer. Our program's 30 hours per week over the summer. It's only 6 hours per week during the school year. Definitely is comprehensive programming, but with 12-hour requirement. I also suspect that most programs serving older not have 12 hours programming, given that older youth have jobs and responsibilities for parents and things. I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that 12-hour expectation, if that is what it's going to take. It's a request for the full award amount. Not have to worry about that requirement.
That's helpful, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. What I'm going to do is put a pin on it, and ask that you, again, document that question more fully, and so that I can respond intelligently online. And before we go to the next question, because I've heard this a couple of times about a max and minimum award. There is no set max and minimum award. The only thing that we've carved out in here is separation of the VLT dollars, so the video library terminal archive. $440,000 is going to that. That is not one award. That is not the max amount award. So if you decide that you want to do that and you are able to justify in your budget why it's coming up $100,000 because it looks like this, but the summer looks like that, that's what we mean by providing a very concise budget with a supporting narrative. There is no such thing as a max award or minimum. The only thing that we have to govern by is once 440 is gone for Park Heights. If all you submitted was the application for Park Heights, and it didn't meet the grading rank to get an award for Park Heights, that money is off. That is the only governance around the award amount. But that's not all that can be invested in Park Heights. Exactly. Okay, so there is another funding stream. If your application ranks high enough in the review process that warrants funding, once that funding stream is exhausted, you still are eligible to receive funds. I don't want people who are serving in Park Heights think that all they have to work with is $440,000 and they're competing against their colleagues. Because the investment is much broader. Okay, so it's not just like, oh, Park Heights just gives this amount of money. All will be reviewed. Okay, Marshall. Woman first and come back. When will the deadline, what's your deadline to have the question? I might not have caught that in the RFP because the question also is concerning because all of my programming is done in school, so it's top site. Let me ask a clarifying question, follow up for everyone in the room. For those of you who are serving in a school building, are you serving in a community school? So here is the consideration that I have to make along with our leadership here. It's around equity. That if our funds are already invested in a community school, the fairness of giving other school communities the opportunity to compete for these funds, right? We're trying to expand beyond that initial pretty large investment in community schools. We're trying to make sure that the mayor's investment can be equitably spread across the city. And if we fund a community school, it becomes an equity issue. And so let me speak very clearly that that is the consideration that we're making and why I have to put a pin on that. We will convene leadership here, make a decision, and get an answer out as soon as possible, and hopefully as early as possible. I can't speak for my colleagues' team on how quickly we'll be able to turn a response around, but I want you to understand the thinking behind that. It is an equity issue. Can you clarify community schools? Sure. So community schools is an integrated strategy of targeted resources inside buildings community schools in the city and invest quite heavily in community schools and out of school time at those buildings. That is the consideration. I see many of my community school friends here, and while I would think so, you're doing youth development, it would seem, but we have to have a consideration around equity and spreading the opportunities to everyone. Marshall.
Okay, then off of that, so we are a family funded organization and a community school partner. We have a standalone center in North Park. Are we eligible to expand programming outside of the school?
If you are operating programming outside of that standalone, you can compete for if it's expanding the opportunities for young people in Oak Park. Yes. It cannot be. All right, coming up front, you and all right, I don't know then. Young lady in the black jacket and this young lady with the beautiful locks. You're up next.
Is there anything that this grant does not cover, like cost-wise, when you're looking at your budget? You know, there's always
Trips to Jamaica are completely out of it.
Like, does they cover salary and?
So we can cover salaries. Again, that we're trying to expand youth programming, to understand that in reviewing, the budget is a score. So just be knowledgeable of that.
Okay, so back to the community school question. When you take that back to leadership teams, can we consider the schools? Some of the schools are, well, all the schools are high needs, but some more than others. And so making sure in terms of equity that, okay, it has an after-school program, but can only service 50 kids. There's 400 children in the building. So the other 300 babies still need services, even though they're a part of the community school initiative. So I would hope that would be taken into consideration in terms of being allowed to apply. And then if I could politely push on you guys to answer that as soon as possible, because the turnaround is the 17th, and so we're talking about building a grant all out.
No, so I understand. So two clarifications on the timing. So first of all, we're going to be here to answer your questions, which then means you'll have it immediately after this, and we can do that. As soon as I can get an answer, I need to get at least that question posted, but it's likely that the majority of these questions aren't going to be posted. But the recording, I feel like we could get that turned around pretty quickly, as well as the answer to that question, if that's the case.
All right. And in terms of what you can spend the money on, is there a list? So like incentives, I know like MSD is very strict. They don't want to field trips like that. So where I stand, can we have a list of those items?
So we can make a list of that available. Again, our haven't put no restrictions on our grant requirement, other than we're governed by any federal, state laws around funding, right? Like pay for legal fees with this, or go have a party for yourself, on it. So and stuff. But if there's anything outside of what's already outside, just our our law governing body. Lady in classes, and then I'll come back and work down this side.
So for clarity, my school is a community school, but it's not funded by Family League, so I am in the school. Okay. My second question, I know somebody said a little bit about it, but does this go into the summer application, or is it totally separate? I mean, does this go into summer funding, or is it totally separate application for summer?
It is a separate application. You can use the funding award across the summer. So if you are operating a school-based program, a full-time program, not school-based, full-time program, and plan to expand that program offering during the summer, it simply would need to be noted, respond to questions, and budget for accordingly. Again, it does not negate your ability to apply for funding through the Summer Funding Collaborative, but they will be aware
if you were granted through this, investment opportunity, and, you'll need to note that in your application for that, which, by the way, will be coming out in February. There'll be a networking session ahead of time, so please be prepared. I believe at the Baltimore Commons website for now, to get details. All right, I agreed to come over here to this gentleman. I'm working up to you, ma'am. This gentleman, and then come down this side. Sorry. Yes, you gentlemen.
Is there a requirement on participants? Do they have to have a certain medium that they meet in order to participate in the program?
No, but we are certainly, one of the priorities was to be in, or we'll give priority to organizations and programming serving in underserved and under-resourced neighborhoods and communities. So I would just ask that you know that.
And they have to be city residents,
They
right?
have to be city residents, absolutely. So this is not for county.
Part two,
Thank you for that.
what can you get listed of 49 communities?
We can make note of that and get it. Do you have a card? Do you have a card? Yes, it should be on our website, but I'll make sure that we can post the record. All right, I'm still coming up front on this side, Heather, and then I'll come up.
Really quick question. One, can an organization put in more than one unique application? So for two separate programs?
Yeah.
Two different sites. Okay. And two, for the comprehensive 12 hours a week, can it be an average? So like if you're going on college trips out of town.
Might direct you that way.
College trips out of town.
Yes.
You could do like 2 days that are 48 hours, but.
Transportation, any limits on transportation, any guidelines? You can add up really quickly when you're paying for bus passes for your young people. So for those on the phone, and I apologize, I haven't been doing the best about question. The question is about any limitations on transportation. I was provided saying guidance around the budget. Put it in your budget. The budget gets scored separately. We don't have any RFs under requirement limitations around transportation, but if your budget is a majority transportation, I don't know how high that scores will review. So that's just my fair answer.
My question is a little bit similar, so maybe if I was answered around equipment, whether that's allowable.
So again, I caution about defined as equipment versus supplies a little different. Computer has been an allowable expense before, but again, remember that your budget gets scored independently, and the idea is that we're trying to but justify the cost.
We're not tracking ADA and doing the reporting.
So I'm gonna direct you that way.
Requirements. Is the grant reimbursable, or how's that?
Oh, that is me. That is me. I should have listened. Oh, I'm so sorry. So the question is, if you're not tracking ADA, basically how are you going to get paid? This is a reimbursable grant. You will do your expenses first, and then but in typical Family League fashion, and I should have mentioned this earlier, when we award, whoever we award to, we will send an award letter out. Upon you acknowledging your award letter, to get a 10% advance. And then upon contract execution for the award, you would get an additional 10% advance. So you do not have to work a full 3 months in the whole. But Family League's process for most of our grants, I should say, is that you work a quarter, submit your expenses, and then get reimbursed for those expenses that you submit. And all that will be done as a part of the contracting process and through our grant management system for those who aren't familiar with it. I'm not handling hands. I'm going to let her direct where we're going.
I don't want to get in trouble with this young lady, so I'm going to come to her and then work back. All right? So, yes, ma'am. 3 questions. She done saved it up over all this time. All right, let's go.
And do they have answers to this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have to be partner with the school to get this one?
No, you do not.
Now, also, if you apply for the school time don't know what you need for the summer in this grant, then definitely apply for the grant. But we just wanted for this time.
Okay, so I'll give my opinion. I think that you should apply for as much as you're going to need until September 30th. But through this grant, and if you want to enhance what you get, apply for the summer funding collaborative. But you want to make sure that you're covered one way or the other. You understand what I'm saying?
Now, do you have any idea how many people you will fund in the support?
I do not. So we won't know until we see you come back on the application.
So this grant is for community organizations or because I'm hearing you saying not school.
Not community school.
Okay. All right. Okay. You don't have to be part of it.
No. The real thought around this investment is for community-based programs to receive funding. And so, in general, those who are not in school, but we do understand that there are some exceptions to that. That's true, Lauren.
My application will mainly be to fund the rec center, which is attached to a community school. But the programming, right, is all independent. So I'll see how you weigh in on that later. The CHARM database I used for the grant I got from the mayor's office last year. I hated it in the beginning, but I saw value in the end. Principally because I had to do all the data entry. But the thing that I am hopeful for is that that tool could be available to us, but with better reporting. Because I liked the fact that I was inputting all the young people and their attendance, but I could get nothing out of that system, right? That to me was a problem. And if it is an option for us to use that as a tool with the reporting out, that would be wonderful.
So grantees through this award will be required to use the CHARM system. We have the perfect person in Darrell Lindo in the room. Working to maximize the use of CHARM over time, and to make it partner friendly.
So that's exactly right, what Ms. Kalila said. And so I do know that there have been challenges with CHARM, and I am new to Family League, but I am challenged with making that a more resourceful tool for everyone to use because, as the lady said, it does have value. There's a lot of data being put in, so the key is to get it out in a useful way so that we can report accordingly. So that is what I plan to work on. So directly, you can contact me directly. You can get my information through the link on here. I don't have any cards with me, but I can run up and get some for you guys to take on your way out. And please feel free to contact me directly with any issues that you're having with CHARM, and I will help you as best possible.
Can we give you suggested reports that we'd like out?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be most helpful.
I think, what are hands up?
Question.
I'm probably blocking hands, so I don't know if it's a CHARM question. It's
not
not a CHARM question.
Does anyone, is it specific to CHARM? No? You're good?
Yeah. There's one specific to CHARM.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for getting EPO away. I appreciate that.
Okay.
When it comes to CHARM, the one question that I had, we fill out the behavior one was a little, you know what I mean, like we keep a lot of stuff in house as far as our behavior binders and what we do for behavior and stuff. So I didn't understand that question of why the Family League needs that information. So I guess at the training, whenever the training happens for CHARM, we can have some more clarity on what information is being collected as far as that. I know it's qualitative. I get that. I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I will note that. Definitely. Oh.
the latter is true. You should submit one application and clearly articulating the narrative that you will be serving both populations. Yeah.
If my program is older you become one and explain that, I imagine that would be challenging.
So here's my opinion in general when submitting these applications. You want to submit an application that's going to get funded, right? And so understand that the budget is its own step. So if you're not able to distinguish enough, where you feel like that's it might impact your ability to get funding, I would suggest submitting two separate ones because there's enough of a distinction there in your proposal. But if it was the same programming without those other nuances, I would suggest submitting one proposal. But in that case, because there's enough of a distinction, you might want to submit two separate proposals if there's enough of that distinction to have two separate proposals.
I see you in the back. I've skipped
And there's some
question
people
up
over
here.
here.
So,
This young lady had her hand up.
okay, I'm going to come to you. You already got.
I just want to clarify, so for like, for the size of the organization, kind of like, you know, how much funding we should apply.
Depends on what your capacity serves. So, we're not, the size of the organization denote how much funding that you are eligible for. And if response is, form has to follow function, right? So, if you have the capacity to serve 50 kids and serve them well, you should request funding in order to be doing that. But if historically your organization has only served 25, request that much, okay? So we want to fund appropriately for what you are able to serve.
And I would add from a budgetary standpoint, if you haven't been able to demonstrate fiscal responsibility over a large amount, I would also be realistic about that.
Yes, ma'am. Is this an all or nothing grant, so either you get accepted or if you decide you're trying to split the pot, you could get partial funding, or does it have to be full funded or not at all? That is a fantastic question and one that to be very transparent had not considered today.
I will say the current rubric is set up to be all or nothing, but having the question posed, you can reconsider that since we got to meet anyway about the other question.
My new Friday night date. All right. Maybe I've noted you're not going to come back. We're working my way back to the back again. These young ladies have had their hands up. So I'm going to come to you by the window first and then come up to you, ma'am. Around the budget question, and with that, something maybe dealing with things of that nature that deal with the program, or and it's hard to hear you speak, almost shout it. Absolutely. So around capacity building, is it possible to put a line item around like insurance, those types of things for your programs, but also for your organization, or is that something that would not be acceptable inside of your budget?
You're talking about like organizational insurance?
Yes. So if you're serving children, insurance, all those different types of things.
Absolutely.
So adding that as a line item to have it funded to be able to serve.
So we typically do not allow that. We have allowed for people to for audits before for finance and funding. I would say put that in a question to the director, but that is not something we have typically funded before. The audits are the only thing that I know that we've ever funded before is around program and cost.
Okay. All right, I got lost in my question.
You're coming up
Oh,
with this
no,
young
sorry.
lady.
This young lady and then over to Marshall.
Yeah, very quick question. Is there going to be a budget template or any other guidance around budget? I'm scrolling through the actual application and in the other times regarding what should be budget and then in the application.
We typically don't provide budget templates. We can provide, but it's a basic template. We have typically not because then what people provide is only the answers to that, and then have almost shot themselves in the foot because then it didn't explain their whole encompassing program. So we can give you a generic template as a point of reference, but we don't really require it because we want to make sure you're able to put in the line items that will truly explain what your expense is. So ours are just basic line items. It'd be anything you could download from anywhere to get basic line items.
Is that something that you think you need, or? I would prefer additional guidance on it. So for me, to know just more specific guidance around it to know.
So the not allowable, we can definitely get you. The not allowable is easier to get because that would come from our funding and what we're not allowed to spend the funding on. It's a little more challenging to tell you what line items we want to see because it's so very, like, some people they fund all consultants, so they have no salary. We don't judge that better or not. It's, well, were they able to justify how their consultants versus people having salary?
Right. In my understanding, you put that in the budget narrative, but those would go under, like, contracted services, correct?
It would. The consultants now.
Right. So if we could get, like, for me,
general template. Just understand you're not limited to the template. Right.
All right, Marshall, and then I'm going to zigzag back up to the front.
So my new understanding of the rate is get more program.
That is correct.
If you're a community organization that also use it
that happening from your office, or is it happening, and is it the primary target audience, those young people that are already attending the school?
Will be for people attending our program in the neighborhood. It gets tricky. It's like, you don't want to, like, not serve all kids.
Yeah, we're kind of splitting here. I really want to get at that population who don't have the great benefits of your services, Marshall, in your neighborhood, because they don't attend that school, but their services don't need facilities, right? So I think we're getting to a point of splitting hairs, and I want you to about how you are not serving the same population or why this funding is necessary to expand services in the Memorial Park.
And I might fall right under the same category, but I'm just trying to get creative in case y'all say no to the being located, at a school, community school. So could you, if some alternate university can find another location, to children, but they're still coming from the school, like our target population would still be students who are part of a community school, could we still apply? If your answer turns out to be no, that you can't be located on a community school campus.
So I'm going to note that nuance,
Okay.
and try to make sure that when we answer the question that we put it articulate.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The middle high school question, and the outcomes are separate and unique, and two proposals, not one, correct? And the outcomes are unique.
So again, some of this you can't really write your proposal for you. What I would suggest is put the proposals forth that you think are going to get your best funding. If you think you're going to have a better opportunity to split those and get those funded, then I would, especially if they're unique enough. If they're the exact same thing for the same population, same age bracket, I wouldn't suggest doing that. I don't think that benefits you in any way to compete for funding. But if there's enough distinction for those to really be two separate programs, different populations, because remember the idea is that we're trying to expand this programming. That is what I would suggest. That's my suggestion across the board. Do what you submit the proposal you think is going to get funding.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was hoping that you could say a little more about, in terms of outcomes, expectations. What does success look like in terms of this pocket of money?
So some of the performance measures, like, I don't know if it's back to that slide, but
particularly, maybe not everybody else, but we're going to negotiate some of those performance measures during the contracting period. But I know that we did say as a priority, one of the priorities is anything that is going to have nonviolence as or violence reduction as an outcome would be important to know.
Got it.
But these are the basic performance measures.
But I'm primarily looking at, the last one, better off.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're paying for. You told us in the pay.
We wanted to, the mayor wanted to.
Right. And in terms of the ETO piece, we miss ETO because we were able to customize our needs. ETO, we were able to. I missed that.
So, people who've already been funded by family. Ain't no water and tell our business. That's okay. We have heard both sides of the coin with regard to ETO versus charm, and trust and believe. We hear regularly, and we are working to do what we can post development. Like that system has been launched, so we're trying to figure that out. Yes, Mr. Ryan, and then I'm coming back to you.
Okay. Last year, the mayor's office managed a pocket.
Yes, ma'am.
I asked for $103,000.
Wow, man.
I got $37,000. I was upset in the beginning, but in the end, I got funding. So my comment, more than a question, is to follow up. If they would award amount, I think that's preferable over nothing.
And before we get into questions, just in the interest of time, and I'm likely to believe, so we're going to make this last round to the back and make this the last set of questions, and then I would discuss to get to the questions now because then that gives us time for questions that need to be pressing for everybody.
And before we question around how much permits are for with regard to food, the fire permit is $150 and the health permit is $50. So just around that amount, I wanted to close that loop.
That's too much.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
So we're gonna get them reduced.
What we gonna do? I trust you. Let's see.
Budget was scored. And is the scoring done solely on the basis of how well you justify the expenses, or are you guys going to look at the Wallace Foundation for people funding?
Doctor, we can't find a Wallace level. While we do respect that as an industry standard and would like to be able to fund at that level, I think that is a standard that we aspire to. That's not where we are, whether we are school-based. We just don't have the funding to do that, and so no, we're not using that. But if we notice, reviewers will be taking note about this funding is meant to support programming for children. If we notice overhead, your budget will be supported accordingly. Yes, ma'am. And then I'm coming back. I promise you, I'm coming back there.
Can you have more than one part, one thing under that title, or one thing, let's say, you're going to do dance, instrument, main instrument, or whatever. Can you put both of those things under that?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to ask this for the remaining questions. If you've already had the opportunity to ask a question, I'm looking for people who have not asked questions. Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
question is, if you were awarded any other funding through a family league or just in general?
What is happening?
So again, there shouldn't be any conflict, because then that shows us you're able to leverage funds. So there's not necessarily a conflict, but again, if you're gonna, you can put that in there to show that you're able to leverage funds.
Hello?
Hello, on the phone, can you still hear us?
I can. I do have a question. Because the line was going in and out, and I know you discussed it, but I need you to reiterate it again. You said something about the award letters and 10% something up front, and the phone reception began to fail, and I didn't quite hear that part.
Okay. So the question that response was to was basically how does Family League reimburse on this award, or how we pay out funds on this award? And Family League pays reimbursable basis. So the way that typically works is that we pay out quarterly, so you would work a whole quarter, and then you would submit your expenses in our grant management system, and then we would pay you based on those expenses after your expenses were approved by finance. However, because we understand sometimes that can be a hardship for people, is we try to provide what we call advances. So when we send award letters to those who have been selected, when they return those back acknowledging that, yes, they want to accept the funds, we allow a 10% advance. And then once we complete the contract execution, which codifies the whole agreement, then we will issue another 10%. So that way you basically end up with 20% before you have to submit your quarterly expenses. So you're not fully working a 3 months in the hole. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just a complete follow-up. So every quarter you need to submit your expenses from now to September 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
And that will be our grant management system. So if you were to get the award, you would actually receive a packet that explains what our grant management system is, how you go about submitting your quarterly expenses.
So when you submit your budget, you want to submit your budget in totality for the year, or you want to submit to say, this is how much I need quarterly?
So what you want to do is submit what your budget is to cover you from January through September, because that's the grant contract.
Okay.
All right. This is going to be the last question for today.
All right, thank you.
Oh, you're not looking at me. Where's my partner? Oh, she didn't left me here by myself. All right. I feel like that's the question. So first of all, I'm not even going to attempt to answer that question because I'm not programmed. I think that. Yeah, how y'all abandoned me? They out here asking program questions. And she of all people, she know better.
I will mark something right against this.
Right.
That is what we're going to convene on and have an answer to after this.
That's inclusive of charter schools, right?
That is correct.
Because some of the charter schools barely.
Right.
We
don't currently have an investment in that building.
Okay.
So I thank you all for your time and your patience with the challenge.
Hello?
Hello?
I think I was dialing